much would it cost? How many workers would we need? Could we even do it if we built it today? The ancient Romans ruled their empire for nearly 1,000 years. They were known for their brutal regimes, extravagant lifestyles, and their bold engineering solutions. And they proved it with the construction of their massive Colosseum in the year 80 AD.
The Colosseum is essentially an enormous stadium. It's an amphitheater the size that the Roman world had not seen before.
You can imagine being a visitor coming to Rome. This would be the biggest building you would ever see.
Constructed from 240,000 cartloads of stone, the Colosseum stands 15 stories high and covers 6 acres, with a playing surface the size of 8 basketball courts or 2.5 hockey rinks.
When we enter the Colosseum today, we really see all of the elements of a great stadium for watching spectator sports. Thousands and thousands of seats, all with a view of the action.
55,000 Romans came here, free of charge, to see some of the most violent sporting events in history. The gladiator competitions were paid for by the emperor.
If one emperor gave a show that had a certain amount of killing and bloodthirstiness, then the next emperor had to top that.
And today's sun-baked tourists might never guess. There was an impressive innovation that hung over this once bloody battlefield.
The Colosseum had a temporary retractable roof that could be used to shade the spectators from the elements. Sailing technology that allowed for the canvas sails to be deployed and retracted as needed to shade the spectators.
Although today there are more than 4,000 stadiums across the globe, the Roman Colosseum still holds the title as the largest amphitheater ever built, and the greatest icon of political power. After all, the Roman Empire was one of the mightiest in history.
It was a chance for Rome to show how important they were, that they really were the center of the world.
Dan Meese is the architect behind the Staples Center in LA and the Paul Brown Stadium in Cincinnati. And he's taking on the world champion.
It was the center of culture and event for Rome, so it became a place everybody went to.
Romans knew it as the Amphitheatrum Flavium because it was built during the Flavian dynasty.
The Colosseum was built as a way of entertaining Romans, but also impressing upon them the power of the Roman emperor.
The iconic structure was about more than amusing the masses. It was a huge source of civic pride.
The Colosseum provided a venue for tens of thousands of people to come together and share the common experience of a live sporting event. To create something on a scale that had not been seen before, and to create spectacle that could only happen in Rome.
Inside these walls, gladiators fought to the death, battled lions, bears, and rhinos. Many of the original columns are still standing more than 1,000 years later.
Today, it's hard for us to imagine building for centuries. We are often building disposable infrastructure today, infrastructure designed to last for a timescale of decades.
If we built solid stone stadiums like the Romans did, they'd last a lot longer.
To build a stadium that would last for thousands of years is almost inconceivably expensive for us to do today.
Besides, modern stadiums are designed to make money, not history.
The main driver of building a modern stadium is revenue. When someone's building a new stadium, it's because we're now able to put in the kind of amenities that drive revenues besides just the tickets.
Can we build a coliseum that'll turn a profit and stay upright until the turn of the century? Our modern mega developer says we could, and we should.
Even if it costs $1 billion, I think the benefit to society outweigh the cost when it's something that's going to be used and cherished by the whole community.
Today's stadiums can easily cost between $500 million and $3 billion, and they often fall apart before their 50th birthday. Nowadays, it's team owners, not emperors, that make our stadiums possible. But to get an owner to work with us, we'll need to come prepared with a foolproof plan.
It's all about the planning. And if you plan it right, you will be on budget and on time. And I think that's a key in success in building any structure around the world.
When the ancient Romans began planning their Colosseum, the empire had just emerged from a civil war that ended when General Vespasian seized the crown. He believed that the chariot races and gladiatorial games held in the Colosseum would bring Romans back together. This was the new emperor's gift to the people of Rome.
When Vespasian built this, he was really building something that was needed in Rome and something that would have a big impact.
The new emperor wanted to build a monument to the might of the empire, but today's stadiums are more monuments to money. If you build it, they will come, and hopefully spend money on tickets, food, and souvenirs.
We're getting bigger and more expensive, and all of that's reflected in creating these giant palaces of sport.
Today, it's pop stars and elite athletes who draw a crowd, not gladiators. But we still crave the unique excitement of being part of a sea of cheering fans.
People want to be in a communal experience. The stadium and arena, it gives the populace a home for that competition and to demonstrate the power and superiority of their culture. That was a big idea of the Coliseum, and I think it's true of its stadium today.
After nearly 2,000 years, only a third of the original Colosseum remains. The retractable awnings, most of the floor, and many of the interior walls are gone. We want a Colosseum tougher than that. One that will have staying power and money-making power for thousands of years. We've got our work cut out for us.
Building in Rome, well, there's a reason why they say it wasn't built in a day. It's not an easy place to build.
Today, we're building for a team owner who's going to want a big financial win. But if we're really going to upset the champ, our Colosseum's got to be bigger, better, and longer lasting than the Romans. So, where are we going to build it? What's it going to look like? What are we going to make it out of? How long will it take to build? How many people will we need? And will it turn a profit or lead to financial ruin?
A UFO sighting in Chile?
Unidentified flying objects. The Air Force has recently made public an archive of UFO reports and investigations.
We're going to use big data technology to find the truth. This is a declassified, top-secret Air Force document admitting that they are seeing possible extraterrestrials in our sky.
They didn't have any wings, they didn't have any propulsion system.
Contact. Series Thursday at 9 on Science and Psycho. Get a Little Caesars large, extra most bestest stuffed crust pizza stuffed with over 3 feet of cheese and topped with extra cheese and the most pepperoni, all at the nation's best price of just $9.
Pizza. That's Safe Auto Blast.
We really pride ourselves in making it easy for you to get your windshield. Plus, you can see we'll be there, saving you time for what you love most.
It's happening. DQ heard our call. The Snickers Blizzard is back.
Now with the new peanut butter pie blizzard made with Snickers.
I like the cul-de-sac.
Yay!
DQ. Happy tastes good.
Barb. 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 I can taste my beer.
Samuel Adams Sam 76. Finally, a refreshing lager that you can taste.
We use the world's finest ingredients to bring you the world's finest ice cream. Because your best deserves our best.
Sure, a resume is a great way to see someone's experience. But you're not hiring a resume, you're hiring a person. That's why Indeed offers tools that help bridge the gap between a candidate and a resume. Like skill tests, which let you actually see a candidate's abilities in action to make sure they're a good fit for the job. It's no wonder Indeed delivers 3 times more hires than any other job site. See beyond the resume with Indeed. Get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/offer.
With the money I've made on Poshmark, I've been able to pay for all our family's vacations.
I could pay for my wedding just on what I've made from Poshmark.
I made over $10,000 and I was able to buy my new car.
Download the free Poshmark app now.
Science shows you why bigger is better.
The magnitude of this building, it's an incredible marvel. You never know what's coming next.
Building Giants, new season Wednesday at 9, followed by an all-new Monster Ships at 10 on Science and Sci-Go.
1-800 Contacts, we're here for Bianca, who'd rather pick up contacts from her doorstep than her doctor. We totally get it. So welcome to fast free shipping, Bianca. For Dwayne, whose eyes are as particular as his routine, don't worry, Dwayne, we've got your back and your special lenses. For Allison, who's lost her prescription, don't panic. Just call, click, or text, and we'll take care of it. And for Shauna, heroic master of budgets, there's our budget-loving best price guarantee, so she never worries about paying too much. For super busy Sarah, there's a super convenient app that reminds her to reorder contacts. And for Bob, who's about to run out of lenses at 3 a.m., there's 24/7 award-winning customer service. That's real help from real people, Bob, not killer robots. At 1-800 Contacts, we see you contact lens wearers, and we're here to make your day a little better. Whatever you need, we've got you covered. Call us, go online, or download the app today.
1-800 Contacts.
I went from rags to riches, but it wasn't luck. I want to start over again. I can build $1 million business in 90 days. And I'm going to do it all undercover.
Undercover Billionaire premieres tonight at 10 on Discovery and Discovery Go.
In its prime, this state-of-the-art Roman arena was home to fierce gladiatorial combat. But after nearly 2,000 years, the Colosseum's crumbling remains are just a reminder of its glory days. We want to recreate this architectural legend. But first, we need to find the perfect location. When Vespasian took the reins of the Roman Empire in 69 AD, the center of Rome was the perfect place for his gift to the people. On site was an artificial lake, fed by the city's famous aqueducts. The previous emperor Nero used it to host his over-the-top private pool parties.
At the time the Colosseum was built, life in Rome had been very difficult for the ordinary population here. Because there'd been the Emperor Nero. The Emperor Nero had been very extravagant.
Building Rome's new stadium on top of Nero's lake may have been a political move on the part of the new Emperor Vespasian. But it had a practical advantage too.
It was an area that was already dug out. It was also compacted sediment, and that was a good foundation as well.
The Colosseum took center stage in Rome, next to the Roman Forum, the city's original public square.
This is really where entertainment and sports began in becoming the kind of heartbeat of a city.
If we're going to build a stadium to rival the one Vespasian built 2,000 years ago, we're also going to need some prime real estate. But in the world of stadium construction, the more recent trend has been to build on the outskirts of town, where there's more parking, less traffic congestion, and in the case of Rome, no fear of your gigantic new stadium leaving a footprint on hallowed ground.
One of the great concerns is that wherever you dig, you might find some important ruin.
An archaeologist's dream is a builder's nightmare. The smallest relic could shut down construction for up to 5 years. That's the reason architect Dan Mies chose to build his latest stadium here, a half-hour drive from Rome's ancient downtown core. His proposed Stadio della Roma would be the home for the city's biggest soccer club.
We're building on a site that we think is pretty clean of any kind of ancient ruins that might slow us down, but we never know until we start digging.
But building in Rome is like building in a graveyard. With 14,000 years of history, both above and below the surface. So, instead of breaking new ground, maybe we could resurrect the original Colosseum and return it to its former glory. But what would it take to revitalize a sports stadium that's past its prime? We may find some answers right here in the Windy City. Chicago's Coliseum is Wrigley Field, named after the chewing gum magnate. It's the legendary home of the Chicago Cubs. And this house is in need of a major renovation. Baseball fans love the trademark marquee and the retro manual scoreboard. But this stadium was constructed in a hurry.
The ballpark, which was built over 100 years ago, was built in 6 weeks for just $250,000. And then the city came in a few weeks later and said, guess what, you need to do some parts of it again because you skipped some of the parts of the city code. That's the part that we've been dealing with.
The fee for giving this icon a facelift? $500 million. More than it would cost to simply replace it. But fans are willing to pay to hold on to their beloved ballpark.
There's a special connection that Wrigley has with generations of Cub fans that has kept it alive.
Chicagoans love Wrigley Field as much as the Romans loved their Coliseum.
Wrigley Field is part of a neighborhood. If you tried to build Wrigley Field somewhere else, it would not be the same. That's part of its charm. It's part of what it makes it special.
Wrigley Field proves that restoration can be more expensive than new construction. So, it won't save us any money to renovate the crumbling Coliseum. Especially since this is its restored state. $30 million was spent stabilizing and refreshing it in the last decade alone. Plus, people seem to love the Coliseum and its ancient facade.
It's incredibly important to the city of Rome today, even though it's a totally different use. It's a place to go see. It's a ruin, but one of the most important ruins on the planet. So it has multiple lives.
It's a massive tourist attraction, drawing in 4 million visitors a year. Trying to convert a beloved World Heritage Site into a modern sports arena would be like putting a fresh coat of paint on the Mona Lisa. So, it's settled. We'll build a brand new Coliseum just outside of Rome, and we'll make ours even bigger. But we aren't the first ones to take on this challenge. There are plenty of stadiums bigger than the Coliseum. Rungrado Stadium in North Korea is the largest. It can hold 3 times as many people as the original Coliseum. Los Angeles has its own Coliseum that holds 75,000 people. The home of Dallas's football team covers 73 acres, more than 10 times the size of the Roman Coliseum. props of the Coliseum are echoed in stadiums in New York, Boston, and all the way back to Rome, where Dan Meese is designing a new state-of-the-art stadium that rivals the Coliseum's enduring architecture and its original jaw-dropping look.
This building, when you first saw it, it would look absolutely magnificent. It would almost certainly also be the most beautifully decorated building that you would ever see.
When it was built, the stone facade extended around the entire Colosseum. Bronze shields glinted from the top tier, and there was a stone statue framed by every archway. But when the Roman games ended in the 6th century AD, Romans began pillaging the decorations, precious stone and metal. And in 1349, an earthquake brought down the southern wall. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but everyone who beholds the Roman Colosseum agrees that even in ruins, it's a beauty. And its look inspires Dan Meese.
The most important thing is we want to do a building that's of its time and obviously of the future as well, but we wanted to make reference to it.
As he's designing his Stadio della Roma, Dan is giving a nod to the original Colosseum in the form of a floating stone wall around the stadium exterior. It will even be made from the same stone as the Colosseum's exterior, travertine, a form of limestone that has the luxurious look of marble.
It is this idea of a very contemporary, modern steel and glass stadium, but wrapped in these traditional materials that everybody's very familiar with in Rome.
It's a new take on an old classic. We want to show the world what the Colosseum looked like before it fell into ruin. So, we're going to reproduce the original exterior, only bigger. Big enough to hold 100,000 spectators. Twice as many people as the original. But we don't want our Colosseum to crumble, so we need to build it with materials that are sure to last for centuries to come. The obvious choice? The same material as the Romans, travertine. The Romans built a 12.5-mile-long road to Tivoli just so it could be brought back by the cartload to the ancient construction site. But travertine alone won't get the job done.
On the interior of the Colosseum, we find brick and concrete vaults that supported the raked seating.
Okay, so let's also add brick and concrete to our materials list. But we also want our new Colosseum to outlast the original. So, we may need some more advanced materials that will withstand the test of time.
At Domino's, we're more than just pizza for $5.99. We're $5.99 bread twists, $5.99 sandwiches, $5.99 pastas, $5.99 chicken, and yes, $5.99 pizza too. We didn't stop at pizza, and you don't have to either.
Forge of Empires. Develop your own city from the Stone Age to the future. Available in the App Store and at FOE.tv. Forge of Empires. Play now for free.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss related to aging? Prevagen is the #1 pharmacist-recommended memory support brand. You can find it in the vitamin aisle in stores everywhere. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Hi. Let's do this. I was training for the Olympics, and unfortunately I got injured and didn't make the team. I ate and drank everything inside.
I did anything and everything that I thought would get me like that skinny, and it never worked.
And then I tried new.
And then I tried new. New taught me how to change my habits a little by little.
They say it's based on a cognitive behavioral approach. I just say it works.
Visit Noom.com and lose the weight for good.
Sundays on Side is our Fantastic. Honor is only digging up more architectural mysteries. Then, modern builders delve into ancient construction secrets. With all new with We Built It Today, it's a night of intriguing excavations, starting with Honor, all new Sunday at 9, followed by an all-new We Built It Today at 10 on Science and streaming on Psycho app. Brought to you by Sprint. Switch today.
Wireless network claims are so confusing. America's most reliable network, the nation's largest and most reliable network. The best network is even better. Best, fastest, best. Enough. Sprint's doing things differently. They're offering a new 100% total satisfaction guarantee. I mean, I think Sprint's network and savings are great, but don't just take my word for it. Try it out and decide for yourself. Switch and get both an unlimited plan with Hulu and one of the newest phones included.
Did it have any propulsion system? Contact. All new series Thursday at 9 on Science and Psycho. Science shows you why bigger is better.
The magnitude of this building, it's an incredible marvel.
You never know what's coming next. Building Giants, new season Wednesday at 9, followed by an all-new Monster Ships at 10 on Science and Psycho.
Since the first people walked through the Colosseum's spectacular stone archways nearly 2,000 years ago, countless stadiums have been constructed all around the world. But not all of them followed the ancient Roman model.
Romans were building for durability. When we build a stadium today, we build in a much lighter way with materials that are not as durable.
Today, many builders are opting to use steel, a much more affordable building material than stone. But can we build a steel stadium that'll last for centuries? That's the goal in St. Paul, Minnesota, where crews are working through the winter to complete a new Major League Soccer stadium called Allianz Field. They're building with steel. Lots of it.
The base building material is structural steel. All around the stadium, there's about 4,000 tons of steel.
Steel is one of the most popular building materials for modern stadiums, and there's a good reason for that.
They erected the entire steel frame here in a little under 8 months, which is extremely fast for the project site as a whole.
Structural steel sounds like a good option. But steel rusts. Will it hold up to harsh winter weather?
One inherent disadvantage is just that as it's a steel material, it is susceptible to corrosion.
To keep steel in optimal working condition, it's painted with a zinc-rich primer. Zinc protects steel from corrosive forces like moisture, acid rain, and UV rays. But it can only shield the steel for so long. It's just a matter of decades before the zinc corrodes too. So, let's tally up the scorecards. Steel or stone? Steel is cheaper, stone is more expensive. Stone lasts longer, steel needs a coat of paint every 30 years. Steel is adaptable and flexible, stone is stately and reverent. Steel is fast and easy to build with, stone, not so much. Okay, that's 5 points for steel and 3 points for stone. That's a win for steel, no matter what game you're playing. To give our new Colosseum the same dignified look as the original, we need a lesson in New Age materials. In Minnesota, they used a translucent screen to wrap up their steel stadium.
This is the first project that we're using this PTFE material. PTFE stands for polytetrafluoroethylene, and it's a fiberglass mesh that's laminated with a polymer.
Laminate provides that hard protective coating on the stadium shelf so that you get the best of both worlds. You get protection, but you also get transparency.
PTFE is more commonly known as Teflon, and stitching it into a stadium calls for some international collaboration.
It's a lot like a quilt where they make the material in the USA, and then they ship it over to China, and the different patches of the quilt are put together in China, and then they fold it up into a crate and then ship it back to site here where we install it.
So, that settles it. We're building a colossal plastic coating over a frame of concrete and steel. And we can fabricate massive pieces of mesh to mimic the travertine exterior of the old Colosseum. But while we're keeping one eye on the bottom line, we have to keep another eye on the future. How are we going to manage the upkeep of all of this concrete, steel, and plastic? Remember, our steel skeleton needs to be repainted every 10 years, and that represents just a fraction of the total maintenance costs.
Any building that you decide to erect with the material you're going to use, you're going to have a plan for maintenance and upkeep that is 100 years plan. And that should be taken in consideration from day one. It's all about the planning.
So, let's bump up our budget by 10% to cover the cost of maintenance over the next 1,000 years. Now we know where we're going to build it. And what we're going to make it out of. But, how many people is it going to take?
It takes a huge team of people. We work with the world's greatest engineers who figure out things that I can only describe. Like, can we make that roof just split apart and move? And they actually figure out the science behind that. And then the contractor has to come in and figure out how they take those drawings and build it, and build it for a certain cost.
But where will we find the right people we'll need to get the job done?
Yes.
So you can always deliver. Only at AutoZone, America's #1 battery destination.
Well, we haven't been here for like a week, so.
Feel like home. Rocket Mortgage. Push button, get mortgage.
Morning, noon, night. Indulgent, delicious, irresistible. Fancy Feast makes delighting your cat delightfully easy. Every recipe, every last detail. Another fancy way to show your love. Fancy Feast, introducing savory centers. Pate with a center of gravy.
I'm a do-it-yourselfer. So when I needed legal advice, I just decided to go to law school and handle it myself. Just kidding. I hated school.
If you aren't interested in becoming a lawyer yourself, call LegalZoom and we'll connect you with an actual attorney.
Dale's little girl's heading to college. Luckily, her dorm is about 10 minutes from a hotel by Wyndham. Ashley's meeting all her in-laws, and she's about 10 minutes from a Wyndham. With over 6,000 hotels across the country, a great hotel by Wyndham is closer than you. Visit WyndhamHotels.com.
DiGiorno pizza bakes fresh in your oven and travels straight to your table. Like delivery that goes from oven to box, bed, to car, to traffic, to roundhouses. Nobody delivers a piping hot and crispy crust like a DiGiorno pizza. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
The game can be rough on skin. Rehydrate and strengthen your skin to bounce back and rebound strong. Double Plus Care Skincare rehydrates and strengthens skin.
With the Capital One Saver Card, you earn 4% cash back on dining and 4% on entertainment. So when you go out, you cash in. What's in your wallet?
It's just what I thought. All
If you don't have dental insurance, paying the bill can be really expensive. After all, just a simple cleaning can cost $150. And other procedures like crowns and root canals can cost hundreds, even thousands more. But now you can get dental insurance for about $1 a day from Physicians Mutual Insurance Company. Call us for a free information kit. Our dental insurance helps cover over 350 procedures. Everything from cleanings and fillings to crowns and dentures. Your acceptance is guaranteed for one of these insurance policies. Even if you're retired or on Medicare, there are no deductibles and there's no annual maximum. Plus, you can see any dentist you choose. Take the pain out of big dental bills with Physicians Mutual. Call us now for your free information kit with all the details.
This is a declassified top secret Air Force document. admitting they are seeing possible extraterrestrials in our sky. They didn't have any propulsion systems.
Contact. All new series Thursday at 9 on Science and Psycho. Science shows you why bigger is better.
The magnitude of this building, it's an incredible marvel. You never know what's coming next.
Giants, new season Wednesday at 9, followed by an all-new monster ships at 10 on Science and Psycho.
2,000 years ago, the Colosseum was built by Rome's enslaved enemies.
One of the major expenses in a building like this is manpower. Now that wasn't really a problem for somebody like the emperor because it was a slave society. There was an infinite amount of manpower available.
Today, we have very different ethical standards, and we plan to pay people fair wages for their hard work.
Thank you
Here
very
at
much.
Wrigley Field, they're working night and day to squeeze 2 years' worth of work into baseball's 6-month off season.
We all work together, and we work around the clock to get it done.
Jim Wilson is the guy who keeps this team motivated.
There's a lot of pride, I think, that these men and women in the trades take. They want to be here and get it done on time.
More than 500 people are renovating Wrigley Field. We'll need just as many people to build our new Coliseum. Most modern stadiums are built in 2 years or less, so that's how long we'll plan for as well. 500 people working for 2 years at today's wages adds up to about $100 million.
Oh, okay.
We haven't added up the final bill yet, but it's going to be colossal. To make that money back, we'll have to fill up our arena over and over and over. 2,000 years ago, the vicious gladiator competitions consistently filled the seats.
It was so brutal and so gruesome. It really goes against everything that we think today is civilized behavior. But Rome was a very martial society. It was a society that was built on military power.
The Roman games weren't just brutal, they were grueling, lasting up to 100 days. As the centuries passed, the Colosseum played host to even more elaborate spectacles.
Between having the ability of storing animals and bringing them into an event, or the gladiatorial floor for a fight, or even the idea of flooding it for a naval battle, it really was seen as a multi-purpose, multi-event kind of building that added a lot to the flexibility and to the spectacle.